Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP, and we're going to be doing a review of CJ the X, The Six Shapes of God, which is a video essay that is philosophical. His video got demonetized and then he got it remonetized again, so it disappeared and then reappeared. So that's why I've been waiting with this video. CJ the X is a wonderful YouTube essayist. He is quite chaotic and he speaks quickly, and it's one of the only videos that I actually maybe have to slow down the reading speed of, because there's so much packed in such a little amount of time. This video is going to be centered around the FE idea of identity in terms of MBTI extroverted feeling, which kind of goes well with CJDX idea of what is the self. But I'll be just going through the notes that I took while I was listening to his videos, so some of them might not make a lot of sense. A lot of them are quotes or paraphrases of him saying things, and it doesn't sound as good as his actual video, so please go and watch his. I'll put it in the description. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, I'm an INFP in the MBTI system, and so my idea of identity and feelings and the self and all that is kind of tinged towards being on the opposite end of what the FE feeling of identity and sense of self is. So I might be more individualistic in the way that I view things, and there is no moral value to this. I'm just pointing out how I view things and other opinions, and sometimes they might intersect and sometimes they might not. Anyway, I wrote this. At the beginning, he talks about imagination. He says, imagination transcends time. You can only perceive the present, remember the past, or simulate the future. Which was quite interesting for me to think of, imagination is not the present. It's always remembering the past, simulating the future, and not being down to earth, in the present. Then he talks about, you have to water the juices of your mind palace's eye fountain. I don't know if that's a correct quote, but it kind of was something to that gist, like kind of how you get inspired, how you find meaning. This is where I'm talking about the adverserial mindset, which is the mindset of me against the world and everything standing between me and my goals, which effectively is me against myself. So a lot of people will think of their goals being outside of them and that they are going towards their goals. That's a kind of mindset that we usually have. But that also leads to us being against the world, we are in a fight against the world, against other people, against relationships, but also against ourselves and our vices. So we're against us. Even if we're in the fight towards growth, we are actually in a fight constantly. That's what he calls the adversarial mindset. And he says it's a fight against suffering, a fight against life, fighting against reality itself. And so the adversarial mindset turns everything into a fight. Then he says, it strips me from that transcendent celestial power my being runs on. It drives me inside myself, petulantly saying what I want, what I like. It makes my life worse without motivating me more. So by fighting against reality, fighting against life. You are stripping yourself out of all meaning in your life. You are isolating yourself from the world, from others, and you are so focused on what you want that you start losing the purpose, the meaning in life. And so it's not motivating you more, it's actually just making your life worse at that certain point. So then he talks about intrinsic motivation and instrumental motivation, or instrumental goals. So like goals that you make that you think will maybe give you meaning, but rather you are not creating meaning, you are just doing things for the sake of doing things rather than for the sake of life, you know? You're doing it because you want some external motivation, that kind of thing. And I see myself in that, unfortunately. I'm trying to let go of external motivation and trying to go with internal motivation rather. He says, embody the experience rather than transactions. Act instead. So experience things rather like as an experience rather than as just a step to get towards a goal, you know? Then he talks about a certain, I forget if it was a Hindu or Buddhist, I forget. If it was a concept that God, well, I guess it's Buddhism because Buddhism kind of is more about everything is one. God split itself up into duality. It split itself up into all of us to play with themselves. So it wanted to experience duality because duality is much more interesting and meaningful than an eternal oneness. So there I can tell that I kind of like that idea because FE in extrovert feeling and the MBTI is about oneness, about harmony, about creating that harmony where everyone is the same and everyone goes towards the same goals, while FI is about being an individual separate from each individual and being our own sovereign power, you could say. However, it is kind of like God in this example here is a supreme being that is just in everyone and everything. So in a way you could say that we are all one, except that we are split, you know? So then he says this, we need to pivot from religion to Jungian psychoanalysis, which is to say we haven't pivoted at all. Which is funny because, yeah, Jung is pretty religious kind of connotation. It's kind of this mysticism that he has. So I thought that was kind of a funny segue that he made. Then he says this, we're talking about revelation, because we're talking about God. This is the whole video is about this 6 shapes of God. And he does this through the Barbie movie, which I'll let you watch the video. I hope that you watched the Barbie movie. It was actually good. The ending, there was a scene that was quite revelatory and it was kind of like a religious experience. So yeah, revelation is not the discovering of something new, but rather a dispelling of illusion, which is the etymology of revelation. It's rather a dispelling of illusion, an uncovering, an awakening. Then he talks about how science is not that far from religion, because science is allowing yourself to have the world reveal itself to you. So I found that quite interesting. that these things that are usually so opposed are actually pretty similar, in that it's about discovering the world, it's about revelation, you know. The scientists go eureka, you know, instead of like going like hallelujah miracle, but it's like eureka. There is this parallels. Here we're talking about identity, and this is quite interesting. He says, saying that the real you is not a you, saying that the real you is a you that has never existed and will never exist means you need to re-examine your idea of what is real. So, saying that you are not, like, you cannot ever reveal the true you to anyone, even yourself, then that means that that idea that you have of you is wrong and not connected to reality. You need to re-examine the idea of what is real. Now we're talking about the adversarial mindset again. Defining society as against authenticity means relationships inhibit your authenticity. Either as a hermit or as a tyrant, you can finally be honest. And that's kind of a toxic mindset, that you can only be authentic if you are a hermit or if you're a tyrant. That if you say that society is against authenticity, means that the relationships with the people around you, which are part of society, also inhibit your authenticity, which is a very real feeling that I have had many times of like, I want to be myself, but I cannot because society is against me, and I need to fight against society to be my authentic self. Very INFP thing, very late diagnosed autistic thing, like me, like trying to unmask in society that doesn't allow it. It's a fight, you know, it's the adversarial mindset. And so it's hard to not become a hermit and self-isolate because of that, because society is horrible to you, or to become a tyrant and like say my way or the highway, you know, like only my way is, I will assert myself regardless of the consequences on my relationships and on, you know, how my life will go because of that, you know. So I don't agree entirely, because I find that we need to fight the fight of our own selves against society sometimes in order to make things change. But here, let's just put that to the side and let's go on with his thesis, which is your personality is birthed from the relationships with other people. Yourself is always being revealed to you, and that is more you than any indulgences to your self-centered impulse and resentment towards everything that created you and your life. So what he's saying here is that you are not an isolated entity, you know. The concept of your identity, of you, will always be affected by other people, and you cannot detach it from that. And you can only discover yourself. It doesn't come from you living in your own little bubble. You are discovering yourself through your interactions with the world, with other people. And your wants separated from society are not who you are. And it is not a very sustainable way to live your life. And I understand, but you know, I have my doubts, but it is quite a revolutionary concept, because I've talked about this before on my channel about that I looked at the Ubuntu concept of the self, which is you are you through other people. And you know, I grew up in the Western, and you know, I'm talking to mostly Western audience. There are some people that live in India that watch my channel, so, and there is somebody, I think, in South Africa and such, but usually it's Western countries that are very affected by, a long history of Christianity and of, a capitalistic mindset and all that, very individualistic mindset, that you are an individual and that you are you regardless of what everyone else does. So it's more individualistic rather than collectivistic. And so I find that to be interesting. I have a hard time with that because my personality type in the MBTI system, which I place a lot of importance on, for some reason, I don't know, my sense of identity, I feel, is very individual. But I do feel a sense of peace coming over me, thinking, oh, I am a part of a collective. I am me through how I am with others and what I contribute to others. And it's not about my successes, it's about my experience of life through what I'm doing here on earth, together with others, with my friendships and all that. And so it's a different way of viewing the self, I guess. Then he talks about religion and its different forms, things that are not considered religion, but that are very similar to religion in that they bring people together and that they celebrate the human consciousness. So he lists art, games, meals, rituals, and structured conversation. And he calls these parapersonal activities or socio-personal activities. They're intrinsically valued activities, so they have a meaning in themselves without leading to a specific goal. And that makes them very similar to religion, because religion is an intrinsically valued thing that is not towards an external goal, Well, you could argue for that there is external goals that could be, but the primary purpose is to create meaning and to celebrate life and human consciousness. So he says this: we act as a collective towards a common goal, willingly altering ourselves to the group's priorities. It reveals you to yourself and is a life-affirming activity. So it is a life-affirming activity to alter ourselves to the group. It is a life-altering activity to deny yourself of your wants and go with what the group wants. That goes quite against what the Western idea of things are. It goes against what I want to believe is true, but there's a certain value to thinking in this way. Then he says, be alive on purpose. It is good to be conscious, which I'm glad he said that. It is wonderful. Then he talks about love. He talks about friendship, which I don't really know what to think of that, so I'm not going to talk about that. But then he talks about love, and he talks about how we can love someone and want them to do well, even though it doesn't benefit us. So if somebody gets to travel to another country, you're happy for them, but then you're sad because they have to leave, and you want to be close to this person. So he says, loving something is caring about it regardless of its instrumental value to you, regardless of its proximity to you. So we see our friendships as meaningful because of the different activities that we do with them, like we create art together, we make meals together, or we have those structured conversations together. You know, and it's a kind of a religious experience because it leads to this connection and this love of humanity and human consciousness. And you're not friends with somebody because they can provide something to you, like an instrument or a tool. You are loving them because of their being and their meaning, you know? You are wishing it well regardless of what it can provide you. And the lover identifies itself with what it loves. So we can feel happiness for that person, even though it is going against what would be good in your life instrumentally, you know. So I found that really interesting. He goes into much more detail and a lot more nuance than I'm able to make in this video. It's a pretty long video that he goes through this. There's a lot to take in. I have talked about this conversation I had with my former INFJ friend at the beginning of our friendship, and that has haunted me ever since, which was that my INFJ friend thought that what identified you as you is how others perceive you. Well, for me, it was how I perceive myself. That was the correct way of seeing identity. I think it is a mix of both. I've grown more and more to appreciate the other view of things. But I live in a society that is more about an individualistic gains, I guess. And also because I am a pretty a human being that has been that has not fit in very easily. It doesn't come to me as naturally as some other people. It does hurt. Like it doesn't really hit me right to know that I'm not, like, it seems like I'm not doing identity right, or that I'm less of a person in this context that they're talking about, which is kind of hurtful, I guess. But I think that there might be something missing to this that I haven't really quite grasped. So tell me what you guys think. Maybe you can help me understand this conundrum. I'm not very well read concerning like philosophy and you know, these kinds of more analytical pieces of literature. I am reading a lot of books at the moment, but mostly they're fiction and kind of self-help books, but not really into the philosophical, sociological world. So maybe there's somebody out there who has read more books than me and who can help me a little bit. So yeah, have a great day, everybody. Bye.